Qualifying 2 for round 6 of the International GT Open in 2024 about to get underway, and all the weather that was threatening us yesterday at the Red Bull Ring has now arrived. We are running ever so slightly behind schedule, owing to red flag in some previous sessions, but only by a couple of minutes. And as you can see, we have green flag conditions, but how long will they stay green? Because as you can see, it has been a very, very wet morning here in the Styrian Mountains. The rain is still coming down and the drivers are venturing out on those wet tyres. So it is going to be survival of the fittest in this 30-minute qualifying session to set the grid for this afternoon's 60-minute race 2. Chris Stevens and George Morgan in the commentary box for this qualifying session. And George, yesterday was very calm. I thought, considering other races we've had so far this season, but a very entertaining battle between the Lamborghinis from Oregon and the car collection Porsche.
Yeah, and what a story for Team Oregon as well, coming back to a track in recent years that has provided them with so much success, and much to the delight of Pier Giorgio Testa and also Jerry Cannaviccio. Once again, they stand tall on the top step, with two cars incidentally making it into the top three, where of course we witnessed Alessio Deleda bringing the number 10 Oregon Team Lamborghini Huracan GT3 across the line, accompanied with Jordan Pepper, of course, who did that brilliant first stint where he managed to gap the rest of the field before then coming in for that driver change. But the drivers have a very different set of affairs to deal with this time. This time the spray very paramount, and a little twist from Dee McDonald and James Kell's car, and already a car off. Incidentally, I think this was the car that spun yesterday.
Yeah, it's Heiko Neumann in the reigning AM champions Team Motorpark Mercedes down at turn number 8. And the German did have a rotation there yesterday when conditions were, again, difficult. We do have a red flag out. And so it is different. It was difficult yesterday because we had damp parts of the track, but with a very narrow, dry racing line. And we can see what's happened to Heiko Neumann here. Probably caught out by that same patch of water that we just saw Dee McDonald have a snap at, but Heiko wasn't able to catch it.
No, he wasn't. And yeah, suffered the same fate yesterday. And obviously now revisits it again this time. The red flag's out for the first time this weekend in the International GT Open, and obviously given the conditions, it is a challenge out there for the drivers. It doesn't matter whether it's single-seaters or obviously beastie GT3 machinery. Obviously every single car driver affected, given the fact that this surface is going to be pretty slick, and no doubt the wet tyres will be in full use. But to talk about yesterday's results, obviously fabulous effort as well from the Leonardo Polcini camp as well to bring it home after Rolf and Eichen. Credit to Rolf and Eichen on performing the way he did on his first start back since having that serious crash back at Spa that put him on the sidelines for quite some time. So wonderful to see him returning and looking good, well fit, strong, and obviously I think that podium is going to feel great. To certainly come back in that vein, I think is going to mean a lot to him. And credit to Nico Menzel and Gustav Bergström. I thought that they did an inspired job as well. Nico Menzel's first stint was absolutely massive, managing to claw his way through the field, eventually taking that second place. You never know, it could have been a victory for them.
Going toe-to-toe with Fabian Schiller in the first stint, that was a fantastic battle to watch throughout the first stint of the race. And then, of course, we saw the sort of tit-for-tat between Alessio Deleda and Gustav Bergström, where they were very much trading lap times. And I think it was the latter stages where Alessio Deleda was finding his rhythm, and that was then able to sort of counteract Bergström's initial speed. But of course, traffic played a big part in it as well. You know, one of them would get a clean run and gain a second, and then the opposite would apply a few laps later. So it was really close, and about 2.5 seconds covering them in the end. But it was the number 10 Oregon Lamborghini crew of Alessio Deleda and Jordan Pepper taking their second victory of the season yesterday. Obviously big news for Alessio Deleda's title hopes. He now leads the championship, having come here second in the standings. Jordan Pepper is not in the same fight, despite being teammates with him, because he missed the 2 races in Budapest. So he's flying the flag for Deleda's title campaign now. And our pre-event championship leaders, Christopher Husser and Simon Riker, coming here on home soil, as we just see again what happened to the Heiko Neumann Motorpark Mercedes at turn number 8. They came here leading the championship, only 9th in the end for them, really. Someone was saying that I made a bit of a mistake in my first stint, got shuffled down the order. And but if you look at the handicap, where you take that away, then we would have been fighting for the podium. And so it seems like the inherent pace is still there. And although the Audi doesn't typically perform so well in the cooler conditions, in the full wet, that's a different story.
I mean, what is interesting is, you know, whilst obviously it's raining now and we did have, you know, minus set of wet conditions, it's not the case just because it's rain. It's not just because it's, you know, wet, it's slippery. I would argue that the conditions they had yesterday were equally more challenging, if not harder, because we were in that crossover period where the track was going from a state of dryness into a state of wet. So, and obviously that then proposes challenges, especially if you're out on slick condition tyres, and then not only that, also for the wet tyres, because there's going to be certain parts of the track that are going to be dry. So there is there was a lot for the drivers to deal with last night. This, however, very different. Obviously, the track is totally wet this time, and we've got a huge amount of spray being picked up by all the cars. So again, it's not as if you can take the parameters of yesterday's race and reapply them to today, because we are in two totally different set of circumstances with regards to weather. I would, so every driver I've spoken to has said they would rather be in this than the like alternative. On slicks, absolutely, on a mildly damp track with a bit of a racing line. It's hard to judge. You can't it is. It's much more challenging, probably. Right, the Heiko Neumann Mercedes has been cleared from the gravel trap, and by the sounds of it, is still running, and so should be able to rejoin this session. Just needs to find reverse, which I know is normally just to the left and up, depending on your road car, but not as easy in a racing car. They don't really enjoy being in reverse. Well, they don't usually go backwards, has to be said. Not really generally. Supposed to. No, it's not part of the course of racing, but Heiko Neumann being assisted by the marshals on the side of the road just so he can rejoin the track, and has the on-screen prompt as well, as you can see on the right-hand side, just detailing what's behind him just to ensure that he can rejoin in a safe manner, and does so, and he gets back underway and will head into the pit lane to join the others, and hopefully in not too long we will be back under green flag conditions. But the spray definitely providing some sort of a complication for some of the drivers. Obviously, Heiko Neumann experiencing that already, and he'll now dip out of Rint Corner and into the pits. Yeah, just trying to clear some of the gravel from the Mercedes. That's why he's sort of jinking about a little bit there. And we do have the fast lane open, so that is usually a telltale sign that we are imminently going green again. 28 minutes and 1 second left on the clock. Didn't get a single sector time in on a flying lap before that red flag came out, so it is still a completely clean slate as Neumann rejoins the pit lane, and so there'll be quite a flurry heading back out there to try and get some track position. Challenge as well to obviously get those tyres up to the correct temperature on top of the conditions that we do have on show here, and then also finding that relatively dry line that can obviously help you out as well. It is a challenge. You see there as well the Audi R8 LMS just sticking out. That's the Olymp Racing treble 7. Of course, Karel Bash was at the helm of qualifying yesterday. This time it's going to go to Marcin Jedlinski. And speaking of Olymp, in front of the car we were just riding on board with, that's Christian Korzeniowski and Stanislav Jedlinski, who was in the midst of a major fight coming in towards the latter stages of yesterday's race. And there's our race winner, Alessio De Leda, who will be taking qualifying, as opposed to Jordan Pepper, who took it yesterday and managed to stick it on pole. Though today, I think, is going to be a different challenge, Chris. It certainly will be, as we have the green light at the end of pit lane, and Marcin Jedlinski does sort of bully his way into the front of the queue. There's the advantage of being all the way down the far end of pit lane. Cars back out on track. As you can see, the rain is still falling. It's not letting up anytime soon, but seems like we're still happy to have the cars out on the racetrack. No aquaplaning as yet, which is, of course, the important thing and the thing that we're most worried about in these sort of conditions, and particularly on this stretch of tarmac here on the run-up to Turn 3, where they built the MotoGP chicane. There's fresh tarmac there, and in these conditions it's very particularly slick. I've seen a few scary onboards of drivers aquaplaning at that moment during Thursday and Friday testing, but luckily we haven't seen anything of the like so far in the actual running of the weekend.
As, who have we got aboard these cars? We've got Barton Abril there in the 51 AF Corsa Ferrari, race winners in Paul Ricard in very similar conditions to this. With Abril taking it from Simon Riker on the absolute last lap of the race. It's a very thrilling finish to the events in Paul Ricard, and I say similar conditions in terms of the amount of water that's on the racetrack, but in terms of temperature, very different indeed, because the humidity and the heat was still there in Paul Ricard, whereas here the ambient temperature hasn't reached double digits all week.
No, it's been very cold. I mean, they started out in free practice around 5 degrees, which was very chilly. We thought we were cold yesterday. It must have been even worse during that period. In fact, it started getting warmer in the evening yesterday when I was stood outside.
You braved it with no sleeves on.
Oh yeah, well it was actually quite nice. It was no different to a typical, typical day in Wales, if I'm honest. But I have to say, it's with Austria, everything's bigger. The mountains are bigger than what we have in Wales as well. But yeah, the rain started to come down in its bucket load, and we're feeling those cold conditions once more. Anthony Barton in that Mercedes-AMG GT3 as well for Get Speed Performance. They, of course, have already won races this campaign. Schiller, though, had a really trying time, especially with Nico Menzel giving him a headache in the opening stint, and it just didn't seem that their car was at the races at that fight, and had a bit of a contest on his hands, but hopefully they'll have another chance. Just running wide, that's the Michele Rugolo car further back. Obviously Gino Forgione at the wheel of it this time for qualifying, as they all now look to try and find track position. Obviously they're going to be fighting for clean air now, given the fact they've all come out and they're all bunched together, so they've got the rain to deal with and also to try and hunt for that clean air.
Fighting for some visibility as Gustav Bergström runs very, very deep into turn 4 there, and I'm not quite sure the Swede managed to just keep it out of the gravel trap there. It was certainly a harem-scarum moment. There he is, he did manage to keep it on the island, just about.
Well, I mean, with Red Bull Ring being one of the shortest circuits on the calendar, it does make that track space all the more harder to find, especially when you've got 30 plus cars.
35 cars out here. Yeah, it's a great grid, but around 4.318 kilometers. They are fighting for space out there, as Marcos Sieber here in the number 17 Team Motor Park Mercedes championship contender, of course, with Diego Menchaca. And we get our first flying lap times on the board. It's a 1:41.1 from the Argentinian. And just to give you a bit of context, pole position yesterday was, what, 1:28? That was in the dry. So we are really lacking some grip out there at the moment. But Sieber continues on his way. He's got the Christopher Haase Audi just in front of him on the road. Surely he's going to be a contender for pole position, as is the man that we've got a clock on at the moment, Giacomo Alto, who is David Fuminelli's stand-in in the Racing 1 Ferrari 296 with Ernst Kirkmeyer that won in Pro-Am yesterday. But Sieber's continuing to lower the benchmark in the first sector by 0.3 of a second. You see they're barely troubling the normal racing line out there, especially at turn 4, exploring where the grip is on this circuit. What does he do at turn 6 here? Again, a wider line there. And then through 7 and 8, this is where we've seen cars struggle already. Dean McDonald having that snap, and of course Heiko Neumann looping his Mercedes around, but Sieber gets through there nicely. If you've been watching previous GT Open races, you might notice a different livery on the number 17. Different colour scheme for them, but this is Giacomo Alto in the Racing 1 car. He goes fastest by over a second, 1:39.9, so we're sub 1:40 now. And let's see if Sieber can match that. Vincent Abril on a decent lap as well. Sieber half a second off of Alto in the end, and Haase a few further tenths behind him as well. It's all getting a bit busy down at turn 1, isn't it? That was the 61, wasn't it? The AF course at Ferrari that won yesterday. That was just going a little slowly through turn 1.
Decent first sector there for Giacomo Alto as well. Eddie Cheever went third fastest. Thomas Eichen jumping ahead of Christopher Haase, jumps into fourth. But Alto improving even more, obviously further delta to find on this circuit, 24.161. Of course, Seabear once had the fastest opening sector, as you now take a look at a replay. And that, oh goodness me, that is Kiki-san and Adamo Seiko, I think, at the wheel of that one on this occasion, because yes, Kiki did the opening stint yesterday. And in fact, this car had a moment around this portion of the track as well in the race yesterday too. Yeah. So just a little bit further down the hill this time around. But
that was with Kiki at the wheel yesterday. Obviously, team boss Adamo Seiko there now. Looked like contact with the car collection Porsche. So actually very similar to what happened yesterday, because I think that was they were pitched into that spin as well, weren't they?
They went the other side. They went over towards the outside of the corner coming out of Rint in towards turn 10.
Giacomo Alto here on another very good lap, fastest in the first sector, showing good speed in the middle sector still as well. Oh, just misses out in the end there by 0.02 of a second. So that lap went away from him, despite improving in the first sector, for our 2019 champion returning to the series.
Christopher Haase going up to third fastest as well, managing to move ahead of Eddie Cheever. Vincent Abril now fifth. Anthony Barton, though, has just jumped Abril into fifth fastest with a 1:41.304. Purple in the first sector again, though, for Alto. He's finding more and more pace, and someone who has won here at this very track as well in the past. Abril now jumps up to second on our timing screen alike after setting personal bests in all three sectors with a 1:40.175. Still not enough, though, to jump on the 1:39.987 that was set by Giacomo Alto. But Alto looking to spread his wings further, and enlist yet another purple lap, and he's nearly half a second faster in the first sector alone.
Yeah. Oh, and look at Haase here getting caught up behind Stanislav Jedlinski. Can I go around the outside? No, the door's closing. Got to go underneath on the exit, and that surely is going to ruin any hopes of a good time here. Look at Giacomo Alto's speed on this lap, though. The Racing One driver is absolutely flying out there at the moment. So he's heading towards the last two corners now at Rint. His timing screen is updating left, right and centre as the conditions are changing constantly. And he's got one of the AF Corse cars right in front of him. It's Jamie Stanley at the wheel of the car. So I wonder if this is going to hinder Alto's progress in this final sector of the lap. I wouldn't expect it to go purple. But he does still improve on his time, a 1:39.4. It wasn't fastest in the final sector in the end, but it's still enough to improve by half a second and put 3/4 of a second between himself and Vincent Abril.
Yeah, he was a second up coming out of the second sector as Christopher Haase now jumps back up to fifth fastest and places himself behind Marcos Seabear. Dan Arrow putting in a steady lap, going third fastest, just behind Vincent Abril as well. Tremendous effort from him, but Giacomo Alto returning as he did back in 2019. Remember, winning with Albert Costa in the first race during the course of that weekend, and would of course go on to win a championship in his own right. And now standing tall again on top of the timing screen. We've still got plenty of time left with 18 minutes and 50 to go, but already sending all the right messages here for the Ferrari 296 team, especially with obviously Ernst Kirkmeyer will be taking the wheel as well in his second stint, and I'm sure he's got a big grin on his face watching this unfold right now. Giorgio Serghiotto hops into 12th fastest as well. Had a tough day yesterday. They actually went out of the race. Both Serghiotto, in fact it was Cozy behind the wheel of the car when that happened, as Dan Arrow now also meets Giuseppe Cipriani coming out of the final corner. And Dan Arrow, who has also had dramas here in the past, of course driving for Oregon Team Lamborghini last year, he popped second fastest.
He strung together some good sector times there, did Dan Arrow, so he was able to put a decent lap in to go second fastest for the Dutch-Polish driver. That was a very impressive speed there, as he puts himself 62 thousandths of a second clear of Vincent Abril.
Yeah, Giacomo Alto has also gone purple in sector 2, 43.660, but it wasn't enough in the third sector. Here comes Christopher Haase, who's had personal improvements in the first two sectors, but I think he got caught up in a bit of traffic, but it did not stop him going second fastest, so jumps Dan Arrow, and he's highest of the pros so far.
Well, it's been immediately jumped by Marcos Seabear, in fact, who's bridged the gap to Alto to 0.4 of a second. That was a 1:39.830. So it's chopping and changing constantly, because Dan Arrow, who was second a minute ago, is now in fifth, as Chivas jumped him in terms of the Pro-Am standing as well. Abril, who was second, now in sixth. So this is going to come right down to the wire. You probably want to be on track right down to the checkered flag, so long as the conditions keep improving, because it looks like the rain is letting up ever so slightly, and we've still got 17 minutes left on the clock, so there's loads of time to find out how this is going to play out. But a personal best for Christopher Haase in the first sector. Giacomo Alto continues to set purple sectors in the first sector, and a good time set in the middle sector as well. He's gone purple there again, and so we'll see how he ends up on this one. But as we continue to watch Christopher Haase, the Audi Works driver, again, decent speed in the middle sector, but it wasn't a personal best as Alto comes through these final two corners, and again is going to come up on traffic here. Might just get away with it against the Villorba Corsa Mercedes that is directly in front of him. Drives up towards the timing lines, about halfway down this start and finish straight, and finds another half a second, and we are now into the low 139s at 39.246. So puts half a second between himself and Marcos Seber.
He might have been quite fortuitous, Alto, in getting a little bit of slipstream heading down that straight, which might have opened up the door for him to gain a little bit of extra time. But a fantastic effort on his part to go even faster, over half a second clear of Christopher Haase, who's down in second, who just went up to second fastest. We witnessed him cross the line just now. Marcos Seber still in third. Leonardo Polcini also pulling together a decent time to go fourth fastest for Oregon team, and he's on a personal best in the middle sector on this current lap as well. But there's the treble 7 Audi. Marcin Jedlinski buried in the gravel as the rain continues to fall.
That's turn 7 again. So this
red flag
section of the track has really caught people out. We're back under red flag conditions with 15.5 minutes remaining. And this is what happened to the Polish driver. Arrives backwards on the scene. So lost it on the way into the left-hander at turn number 7.
Very easy to get caught up at that point, and it's been a hot spot really for many a moment that we've witnessed so far. As you can see, live pictures of the cars now heading up through towards turn 3. Marshall's waving the red flags. They will very shortly be coming into the pits. Some drivers already in. Greystone have got 2 of their cars currently lined up. They've got their third one now rolling in, of course being driven by Ollie Webb. And then further back, SBS Performance Mercedes, and we've got quite a plethora coming through turn 4 as well. But good start for Giacomo Alto. Giacomo Alto currently leading the charge. 139.246. His last lap was also his fastest. And Christopher Haase sat in behind, looking to obviously try and build on what was a difficult day yesterday. They had some challenges in qualifying. Christopher Haase thought there might have been an issue with the car that they had not yet identified. So whether they've got that fixed, certainly looks like they're in rude health, but we know what they say about rain, it's the great equaliser.
Half a second between the Ferrari and the Audi, Mercedes, Lamborghini, all represented in the top 4 as well. It was that 777 Audi that's brought out this red flag on the Pro-Am podium yesterday, and was trying to bridge the gap to Marco Polcini, who is our championship leader there. And it is it's quite a sizable advantage that he's managed to pull in the first half of the season. It's another close fight between Olymp and AF Corsa in that championship. As we see Blau Motorsports going to work with the AF Corsa run car, the Brazilian pairing of Lam Cadet and Marcelo Hahn. And then this is our provisional pole sitter, Giacomo Alto, in the number 11 Racing 1 Ferrari, the 23-year-old Italian. Our 2019 champion, of course, and came in, did the job absolutely perfectly yesterday, won in Pro-Am, and helped Ernst Kirkmeyer to his 2nd class win of the season.
Yeah, big points as well, especially given the fact that the Pro-Am grid is quite a furious one this season. I mean, if we look at it in comparison to the in recent years, it definitely does look like one of the strongest we have definitely had, and that can count for the entire grid. In fact, when we factor in the pros, and we've witnessed obviously now Alessio Deleda, Jordan Pepper taking the top of the overall standings, and looking very strong, finally managing to make their way past the pairing at East Talent Audi of Christopher Haase and Simon Riker, as we now take a look at said car in the garage with Christopher Haase sat there waiting to go out again. He said he was quite convinced that East Talent would need wet conditions here this weekend, so I don't think he's too upset to have the rain tumbling down, but you do get, you know, further complications that include the likes of red flags in circumstances like this.
Yeah, he looked asleep in the car, though, when we had a camera on him.
Well, it's still early.
Gathering his
early.
thoughts.
It is still early.
Yes, it is. Tan Arrow there. Happy to be back, isn't he?
He certainly is. Great effort in his opening stint as well. Briefly went second fastest as Marcin Jidlinski now makes his way back out onto the track. He'll be heading into the pit shortly. And again, as we saw with Heiko Neumann, of course, came out of the gravel trap and came into the pits. It wasn't too long before we got back under green conditions, so I'm sure we won't be under red for too much longer. But the team's now reassessing the wheels, the tyres actually coming off some of the cars, just so they can prep for yet another run out onto the track, and again shaking the gravel off the Audi R8 LMS. But there we have it, 15 minutes and 27 to go. Still time for an improved lap time, but obviously they're going to need time to get the car up to the correct temperature.
Yeah, it was quite a rapid turnaround. As the drivers were finding out the grip levels and getting a feel for the conditions and getting themselves up to speed. We really lowered the lap times very quickly. I mean, we started out in the 141s, we're in the low 39s. As the new wet tyres been put aboard some of the AF Corsa run cars, you know, are pretty much unlimited on wet tyres, whereas normally you are reduced to 16 sets, 16 dry tyres, not sets, 16 dry tyres for a race weekend. And but when it comes to wet tyres, we don't really want to put a limitation on those on safety grounds, really. And so Michelin providing a very nice wet tyre for us to use, and holds up very nicely in such conditions. Let's see the queue already waiting at the end of pit lane. The fast lane is open. So we should get the second half of this Q2 session underway very shortly. See that Aaron Walker trying to bully his way into the queue there in the Get Speed Mercedes, the number 6. It might be Valentin Pierberg at the wheel of that car, actually, but yeah, trying to find his way through. Again, sticker set of Michelins going on the Greystone GT McLaren, the Proctors. Stuart Proctor aboard the car for this session. And a third entry from Greystone this weekend, I should say, with Dean McDonald and James Kell, their first in pro. Third McLaren 720S GT3 for us to enjoy. And they had a very good run yesterday. They finished inside the top 10, didn't they? And so that was admirable performance, especially considering the challenging conditions that they were met with in their first race here. And I believe for both drivers, first time racing at the Red Bull ring. As we have the green flag out, and the cars make their way back out onto the circuit. Bit of wheel spin, bit of high revs as the cold tyres are met with the wet surface. Venturing cautiously back out onto the racetrack. So 15 minutes left to go in this session. Currently it is Giacomo Alto fastest on 1:39.246. The Pro-Am car, he is half a second clear of Audi Works driver Christopher Haase aboard the East Talent Racing Audi. Marcos Seeber sits in third for Team Motorpark ahead of Leonardo Polcini in the number 63 Oregon Lamborghini. Then a couple more of the Pro-Am cars. We have Eddie Cheever and Dan Arrow for Spirit of Race and Good Speed, respectively. Vincent Abril in 7th for AF Corsa. Alex Fontana in the other Pro-Am car from Car Collection, the number 12 in 8th. Thomas Eichen for Team Motorpark in the Pro-Am car in 9th. And then Ollie Webb in the 24 Greystone GT McLaren in the top 10. We have Dean McDonald just outside the top 10 in the 11th, and Anthony Barton, championship contender, in 12th position. Mikhail Patamba didn't finish yesterday. That number 20 SBS Automotive Performance Mercedes had its first non-score of the season yesterday when the car lost power steering and diff issues that they've been having all day. Really got a series of issues on that car, and the South African is in 15th as it stands.
Yeah, Mikhail Patamba, who for the first time yesterday finishing outside of the points, which was certainly tough for them to deal with. They've been one of the more consistent team pairings of the campaign so far, scoring points in every single race since we got racing underway back at Portimao earlier on this year. But we're set with quite the challenge when we went racing around Red Bull Ring yesterday with the changeable conditions in the, well, towards the end of the race, more so as the droplets started to fall. Came a little later than expected, to be honest, as we now once again watch Marcos Seibert climb the hill up towards turn 3, again looking for that drier line. You can just see the wheel tracks in the road almost.
Oh,
as it tries to get the car rotated coming out of turn 3. Easy to rotate, you can imagine, but the problem is you can rotate all the way.
Yeah, well, he was struggling to get stopped there, wasn't he, Seibert? And then turns into quite a bit more, quite a bit more spray out there now that we've had 5 or 10 minutes of quiet running there during that red flag period.
Well, they need to reset the racing line almost, because it gets to the point now where obviously all the tracks that they had left before, and again another little twist from Seibert coming out of Slosh Gold, as we now watch the 27 of Eddie Cheever stuck behind Giuseppe Cipriani, who of course led, or has been leading the AM Championship now through the course of this campaign. Down the inside from Eddie Cheever straight away to find the track space, so he can then go out and set a lap. Looking to go back-to-back in Pro-Am Championships alongside Marco Polcini.
Yeah, but Cheever was struggling to get it around the corner there as well on the inside of the Lamborghini. And you know, there are a couple of cars, Giacomo Alto and Christopher Haase have stayed in. I wonder if they've thought, it's too wet out there, we're not going to improve. The only thing we're risking by going out there is binning the car. Right as I say that, of course, Christopher Haase proves me wrong, and he's on his out lap now.
Yeah, making his way straight out. 11 minutes and 45 to go. You never know. We could be in for a truly...
Whoa.
Oh, goodness me. Now, is that the car collection Porsche? I think that might be Timon van der Helm, Bashar Mardini.
Yeah,
Yes.
the number 7, and that was under braking for the hairpin at turn 3. I would have thought you'd be on the brakes at that point. He's not just aquaplaned off. Oh, can he get out of the gravel? Can he get it out of the gravel and avoid us going back under red flag conditions? Well done, Bashar Mardini. That was very good to not let the car get beached in the gravel trap there.
Yeah, only the two, the left-hand side tyres were actually stuck in that gravel, so he had enough of the car on the track to pull himself out, but well done, yes. And now he can go out and hope that he can improve on his previous lap time that he has set. He's currently 25th fastest, just ahead of Valentin Pierberg at this moment in time. Of course, in Pro-Am class, as they take the dive down through Rindt Corner and then look to commence their another flying lap. Quite busy there in the middle sector. There once again is Marcos Seibert, third fastest right now. It's Alto, Haase, Seibert, Polcini, Leonardo that is, and Eddie Cheever, Dan Arrow, Visson Abril, Fontana, Aiken and Webb, your top 10.
George, I've just noticed there are 2 Oregon Lamborghini not even in the top 25. One of them is our race winner from yesterday, Alessio De Leda. Where is it? Down in 28th place. And Marzio Moretti was in, what was that, 31st? So hopefully those 2 cars are going to be able to put in a lap in these final 10 minutes. But a few cars are bailing for pit lane. I wonder if they've decided we're not going to improve the times. And the timing screen right now is just, it's all white numbers because nobody's improving.
Barton.
And that is Anthony Barton, who has found the barriers at turn 2. There are yellow flags out. We've got a red flag again. And that might be all she wrote for this qualifying session if conditions don't improve, because he has slammed the Get Speed Mercedes into the barriers.
Well, I mean, if they, at the moment in time, even if they get the car out and removed, I'd imagine some of the teams will turn around and say, well, this is probably the best we're going to get here at this point, given the fact the conditions are the way they are. I mean, they're not going to probably have enough time to get the cars up to temperature, which is going to be the challenge. And
well, that's going to be a nightmare for Oregon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yesterday's race winner starting in 28th place.
But then again, if these are the conditions during the race, I mean, anything can happen, as they say. And it usually does. But Alto at the very top in the pits, and I'm sure, I would say convinced that he has got this pole position, and what a return to Red Bull Ring it'll be for him after his championship winning year in 2019, also granting him a victory around this very track. He's going to be on pole here for the second race here in 2024.
He didn't even go out during that
well, he probably doesn't need to risk it.
No, exactly. I think we said you were just risking ditching the car, which unfortunately is what Barton has done. Now that is aquaplaning.
Yeah.
He's lost it on that strip. That was the area we were talking about. That's the fresh tarmac with this water on it. Is incredibly slick. And he's found the barriers. And there was a spin there for the 63 as well. Leonardo Polcini, who's lost it there. So no wonder we're under red flag conditions. The drivers are struggling to get it up the hill at turn 3 without looping it round.
Yeah, it's like Swan Lake here in Austria at the moment, with it almost being an ice rink out there. Obviously no ice as such, but just the wetness of the weather that has now sent this track into a very greasy state. But more and more cars now coming in. But fantastic effort from Giacomo Alto back again here in the GT Open, and we'll look to try and convert this pole into race victory. That is if we get this confirmed. We got confirmation as well from race control. From the driver of car 9 is okay, so no concerns. Anthony Barton confirmed absolutely fine after that. So
there might not be any concerns about Anthony Barton, but I'm sure there are going to be concerns about that car starting the race because it is quite a condensed schedule we have here today, and we go green for the 60-minute race at 1:15 local time. It is currently approaching 10 o'clock in the morning. That is a narrow window, especially bearing in mind that they have to have the car out of pit lane by 1 o'clock. So they have 3 hours to get that car back and in a raceable condition. Now, never underestimate the team at Get Speed, for sure. But that is certainly going to be a tall order for the Nürburgring-based outfit, as we see again the moment for Anthony Barton.
Big hit.
I mean, there is absolutely nothing he could have done about that. It'll be a confidence shaker, I'm sure. As we see, Polcini had his own moment there, looping it around 1080 even.
I think he'll count himself lucky, Polcini, that wasn't, I would say, is any worse than what it could have been.
720,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you'll be relieved that it wasn't any worse than the spin that he took heading up towards turn 3. Could have easily ended up like Anthony Barton, but in goes Gino Forgioni's car after a busy day at the office. Of course, they will be looking to head out into the race and look to give their best result possible. Yep. Anthony Barton obviously looking a little bit somber right now, and understandable. He is such a competitive driver, of course, has a racing family over in the United States, and has come across over to the International GT Open to compete. And having someone like Fabian Schiller alongside you in the car is certainly a very useful acquisition to have, especially in races such as these, with Schiller's experience in terms of winning races at the highest level. And here at the GT Open, remember, they took victory in their own right back at Portimao as well. But it's going to be a very, very tough task for the team to get that car ready. But Get Speed obviously have all the tools at their disposal. I'm sure Adam Osaka's squad are going to be hard at work to try and at least get it in somewhat of a drivable condition to race this afternoon.
And team that is 6th in the championship going into this weekend. It's been such a topsy-turvy season for them when they won the first race in Portimao, but they weren't on the podium until Paul Ricard last time out, because there were ups and downs. There was the spin on the last 5 minutes in Hockenheim. There was the crash in Budapest as well. They've been very unlucky.
Yeah, very
had a very up and down season. When you compare it to somebody like Baumann and Patamba, like scoring points in every race, as you say, but actually very closely matched when it comes to the points tally. Schiller and Barton coming here on 60 points, 12 points back from the championship leaders going into this weekend. We wait for news to see if we will get the remaining 10 minutes and 2 seconds of this Q2 session. And if conditions will allow for times to improve, as we can see the glorious 35 car grid, well, down to 34 now for this qualifying session. It's astonishing that that's actually the first kind of big incident we've seen in this session. They've been met with very difficult conditions, but that's the first like big moment that we've had.
Well, we didn't have a red flag in GT Open yesterday. There wasn't one that popped out, but we've had quite a few instead. My guess is that they were saving them all for the qualifying session this morning. But yeah,
quite.
Not ideal. Obviously, the rain still continuing to persist and fall, and the track getting very greasy. The cars now sat right outside their boxes, and waiting patiently for the news. With Alto up at the top, obviously we look back to the championship situation, and of course this gives Christopher Haase and Simon Riker a great chance of potentially taking the championship lead back away from Alessio De Leder. Now we do have an update, folks. Update, we have a restart in 5 minutes, so we will bring you news very shortly. But yes, 5 minutes until we get an update for the restart.
Yeah, I don't think that means restart in 5 minutes. It means we'll know in 5 minutes, because that Tech Pro barrier needs to be put back in place, and the corner workers are on the scene there because obviously it's had a knock. So they need to make sure that it can withstand another. Yeah,
absolutely. Purposes of it, obviously, to ensure the safety of our drivers, and once again showing how effective it is with Barton getting out of the car all day. Good at the end of that moment. But great chance here once again. As I said, Haase will be looking to try and take that championship lead back. De Leder, of course, taking it after coming across the line yesterday for victory. So he and Pepper currently lead the standings right now. And Haase, given the fact that he's starting on the front row alongside Gio Giacomo Alto, I think he's going to have a reprieve. He's going to be happy in the knowledge that De Leder and Pepper are down so far.
And I know that there are going to be a couple of people writing comments potentially and saying, oh, Alessio De Leder, that guy from F2. And say, well, that's only half the story, really, because he didn't do karting, and actually was a motorcycle racer initially in Italian Superstock before joining the single-seater field in 2018. But since joining the world of GT racing, did 2 years in DTM in the Lamborghini, has raced at the Daytona 24 hours, and Italian GT last year with the Oregon team, and since then has become a Lamborghini Junior driver, which is obviously a mark of intent for Lamborghini and its young drivers. And so Alessio is very much finding a home here in GT racing, and a lot of young drivers now are starting to realize that perhaps Formula One is an unattainable goal for many, and actually your safest bet, if you want to be a professional racing driver for the majority of your life, then welcome to GT and sports car racing.
I think a lot of it is down to discovery. I think more than ever, drivers are discovering there are other avenues, and certainly trying to grow the perception, obviously, that there is more available to these young talents who obviously come through the ranks of the feeder series. And now we're seeing more and more drivers coming into the GT Open. I mean, we've obviously seen Vladislav Lomko debuting in this championship this season. Of course, we've got Lorenzo Flusha, who's come in out of single-seaters, has also had a couple of stints in prototypes. Marcos Seibert, former single-seater driver, alongside Diego Menchaca, another two that have obviously competed in the Euro Formula in the past. And Seibert becoming a European Le Mans champion last year with Alejandro Garcia, who is also a Euroformula driver from only a couple of years ago. So it's fantastic. It's opening more doors for drivers. And I must say that the grid here at the International GT Open is also experiencing growth in its own right with the amount of drivers that we have here coming out of single-seater options. And it makes the racing all the better.
Nicola Marinangeli coming over from the Euroformula Open Championship as well. We have Artem Petrov in the Oregon Lamborghini, raced all the way up to the Indy Pro 2000 level before moving back to Italy and
Timon van der
discovering GT racing. Well, yes, Timon especially because he also has the GTP program with Porsche in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, so he sort of takes it a step further, really, doesn't he? And the Thomas Eichen as well in the Pro-Am Championship, the former British F4 racer. Now, he's someone who... And do you know what? There's a story with a couple of drivers like this at Motor Park, actually, where Thomas Eichen ran out of money doing British F4, and where's he found a home? In sports car racing. Very similar story with Lucas Dunner, really, in the second of their pro Mercedes down at Motor Park, the number 96 crew, where he came over to the Euroformula Open as well, but largely racing in single-seaters before that, but ran out of money at the end of 2020, and we didn't really see him racing on a circuit again until the very end of last year. And so there is very much a narrative here for young drivers. You can find a home in the world of GT and sports car racing, and certainly the International GT Open is a great opportunity for young silver drivers to come and learn the craft as well. We have plenty who fit the bill like that. Gustav Bergström is a prime example as somebody who has raced in Carrera Cup Scandinavia for several years and now doing his first year of GT3 competition. Mikhail Pitamba joined us from the DTM Trophy last year and was very impressive in his first year of GT3 racing, and you can see the confidence growing in that young man. Aaron Walker is another one as well for Get Speed, 18-year-old Brit who made his European debut last year with the Get Speed team, and has been a force to be reckoned with in the Pro-Am standings, that's for sure. So, yeah, the list goes on.
It certainly does, and it stretches far and wide as well, with drivers coming from all walks of life, including those gentlemen drivers who have come in and experienced GT3 racing upon many different levels. There is Anthony Barton, and good to see that the helmet is off, he's all okay, and chatting with Adam Osaka.
They've clocked on, they know we're listening in.
But you are the driver, you have to say no, it's impossible, you know what I mean? Because the engineer doesn't see the conditions outside, so you have to say...
Well, that's the moment again that Anthony Barton walked away from, and got Adam Osaka, the team boss, just giving Anthony some words of wisdom there. Of course, Adam, driver in himself in the AM Championship, where we do have the battle of the team bosses in the AM standings. Of course, Timo Rumpfkarl, Team Motorpark
Champions
boss
last
there
year
as well. Yep, champions last year. And actually, it's the Get Speed pairing that are fighting for it this year against Giuseppe Cipriani. So that I'm sure is going to be one to watch for in the Monza Endurance finale as well. Just a reminder, actually, that this is the antepenultimate round of the International GT Open in 2024. We go to Barcelona in 2 weeks' time for 2 more sprint races before ending on the 20th of October at the Temple of Speed in Monza for a
final double race weekend.
Yeah, it will be the GT Open 500 as well, so the 2.5-hour endurance race, double points on offer, and we think the championship is pretty close at the moment, but I think it's going to be even closer by the time we get to Monza.
And what's striking is, especially with the endurance factor and with those double points, it could yet throw a curveball in the championship, especially when the top end is so tight. Of course, we're watching De Leder and Haase, or should we say De Leder, Pepper, Haase, Riker swapping at the moment. And it looks very likely we could see that swap continue. Again, further words here between Barton and the team. Obviously, we heard the words of wisdom there from Adam Osaka, just said, obviously alluding to the conditions. Fabian Schiller there stood alongside as well, of course, who has bountiful of experience.
You alluded to the fact that he comes from a racing family. He's rather breaking the mold of his family history, though, which is in drag racing in America. His father, Tony, is the team boss at the Barton Bros team, and his uncle Michael as well, a very famous name in the world of drag racing. And the 24-year-old American, Anthony, really only started racing very recently. It was only in 2022 that he got his competition license and started racing in the world of GT racing in America with GT World Challenge America and GT4 America with Andy Pilgrim, the multiple sports car champion, who's a family friend. And as well as that, Adam Christodoulou, of course, is a familiar name to the International GT Open from the Pro-Am battle a couple of years ago, and then came over to Europe last year, did Barton to do a couple of rounds with us last year, and now a full season effort with Mercedes Works driver Fabian Schiller, and in his first year, very much in the title hunt. So it's been quite an intense couple of years for Mr. Barton and his short but very, very entertaining racing career.
Yeah, he's been good too. I mean, and stepping into the International GT Open to take a victory at Portimao is no mean feat, and obviously Schiller being very useful in the pursuit of that. Once again, the Marshall's really going to work on this barrier, just trying to level it out, obviously trying to ensure that everything is back as it should be, because Barton did obviously get collected in some fashion heading up the hill after just losing the car underfoot, and with the track just being so slick. Obviously, the rain still continuing to fall. But obviously no sight either of the ISR Audi that went out yesterday as well. Obviously, that's one belonging to Philip Salakada, who unfortunately had a moment coming out of turn 10. It actually looked on our cameras initially when we saw it. I thought it was going to be at the top of turn 3, but it became apparent that it was in the barrier at turn 10. So these things are prone to happen, and that's part of motorsport. And Barton's going to have to hope and pray that Adam Osaka's team can get their car back out and ready for racing this afternoon. But there we can see very quiet in the pit lane right now. We're still waiting on an update for you folks. We will, of course, bring it to you as soon as we have it. Still red flag conditions here at Red Bull Ring with 10 minutes and 2 on the clock.
Can still hear the rain that is pattering down on the turn 1 camera there on the microphone. So it's like having a live weather update as well. We can tell you it is still raining. So Blau Motorsport there at Alam Kader and Marcelo Hand. Marcelo out of the car, and he's just having a chat with Alam and the rest of the team.
Alam Kader had a big qualifying session yesterday. Did exceptionally well to stick it on the front row, and alongside Jordan Pepper, and they fought furiously coming out of turn 1. It was a very big battle, but unfortunately for Kader, he got swallowed up heading up through the should we say the initial stages of the race. Just kind of got picked apart. Nico Menzel was one of those that went to work and finally managed to pirouette his way around Fabian Schiller to take second place, but unfortunately for Kader in that first stint, it just wasn't to be. And obviously tyre choices might have been a big factor behind that, because of course many opted for the slicks. Some might have betted on the wets.
I think everyone went on slicks in the end. George, just from who I spoke to, it was not wet enough to justify the wet tyre. It would have been chewed up pretty quickly. But yeah, I think the blunt way of putting it was that Alam Kader was rather bullied in the first stage.
It certainly looked that way. I mean, we had a 3 wide heading through turn 1, and there is Barton's car, and it's seen better days, so we'll say that. But I'm just clocking whether there's potential.
Well, 2 hours, 51 minutes starts now for Get Speed to get that car ready and out of pit lane. That is when the red light will come on at 1300 hours local time at the end of pit lane, at which point it will, if they are going to start the race, they'll have to do it from pit lane.
Nicola Marinangeli also just conversing with his team. Obviously, Vincent Abril doing the session, qualified 7th. And we have got confirmation, folks, that the pit lane will open at 12 minutes past 10. So in around 10 minutes' time, we will be back underway. 2 minutes' time, I should say, even. We will be back underway here at Red Bull Ring. The rain's still continuing to fall, but it's not dampened the spirits of anybody here, with spectators in the grandstands watching on as we await the cars to head down, with fast lane opening very soon. In fact, fast lane now open.
Yep, less than a minute to go until the remaining 10 minutes and 2 seconds of this Q2 session. Thank you for your patience. This has been the longest 30-minute qualifying session in GT Open history, I'm sure. And the only driver at the moment who looks like who's going to brave the conditions is Mr. Ollie Webb in the 24 Greystone GT McLaren. One of 2 Pro-Am efforts from the British team. The Mancunian at the wheel. Former European Le Mans Series champion, of course. He and his bronze driver, Andrei Borodin, been racing together for a couple of years now. But at the moment, it seems like everyone else is saying, well, we've seen what happened to Anthony Barton and what almost happened to Leonardo Pulcini. We ain't risking it.
No.
No, Haas has gone. There he goes. That's the second time that I've said something and Haas has immediately proved me wrong today. I'm going to go and have a word with him after this.
Well done, Christopher. Now making his way to the end of the pit lane. Obviously, we will be witnessing it open up very soon. It is confirmed, everybody. Still under red flag, though, for now. Ollie Webb, though, is going to lead the train back out onto the circuit. I mean, even if they can't find any faster lap times, it's all about getting that track data and ensuring that they've got everything they have underneath them ready to utilise at their disposal as we look to go racing this afternoon. As you can see, the garage staff now peeling out of the garages with tyres in hand. Some of them now being placed onto the cars, so it might be the case that we only get a certain number actually heading out onto the track. Some of them might choose to remain in, and I'm looking outside now. No movement from Team Oregon here at this stage. I think they've called it a day in terms of qualifying. I can see the fronts with no tyres on, though as I say that, looks like they are bringing tyres back out onto the track, and yes, there is activity at Oregon.
Green flag is waved. Third car joining the queue, which is the Dean McDonald Greystone GT McLaren. So their pro effort, that is a new entry for this weekend. You see rain still falling. Conditions not fantastic out there, but these guys feel there is something to learn. Fabio Babini also heading out in the Tsunami Racing Team Porsche. Did have it confirmed actually yesterday that that is the same car that was rather roughed up at the Golf 12 Hours last year, but obviously in much better nick now. And at the hands of Tsunamis, or two of Tsunamis, GT Cup teams. We don't have the GT Cup Europe with us this weekend, and so they are giving the GT3 a bit of a whirl, but they will continue on in GT Cup for the remainder of the season. They're with us in Barcelona and in Monza as well, so there's a whole championship fight happening there as well. If you're enjoying your GT Open competition, you want a bit more of the action. A few more cars heading out. Alessio De Leda, he needs to put a lap time in, because you can see him there, bottom left of the screen, 28th place at the moment for yesterday's race winner. The Italian needs to find some speed.
Yeah, currently the only Oregon car actually that's made its way out onto the track, which could be kind of fortuitous given the fact that we have at this point only got a certain number of cars out on track, as we now watch De Leda make his way up the hill through towards...
Example there of why I don't think we're going to get much lap time improvement in these remaining few minutes of the session.
Well held by Dean McDonald. Obviously we saw a twist of the wheel as well coming out of turn 1 as he looked to find the grip, heading down through towards turn 4 this time. Again, this is a sharp descent before then reaching the apex. Of course, he won't go too close to the inside curb, instead taking a wide line heading out of turn 4, then through towards turn 5. He'll of course stay well clear of those curbs on the outside. Of course, we've seen cars getting collected here at this point too, incidentally. Of course, we're not too far away as well from the scenes of where Heiko Neumann got picked up in both today and yesterday's race, and there you can see a visualization of it right there. Dean McDonald able to hold on, at least for now. It's so satisfying watching a pro and experienced driver at work, just trying to ensure that this McLaren 720S stays on the road its first weekend in the International GT Open for Greystone GT, a first pro entry as well for the McLaren outfit as he now heads down through towards the start-finish line once more. He actually enlisted a personal best in that middle sector with a 44.470, so good effort from Dean McDonald. Let's see if that's helped him at all coming out of sector 3. It does. He moves up to 10th and ahead of fellow McLaren driver Ollie Webb.
You know, Yannick Mettler improved last time around as well. 15th fastest and 8th of the Pro-Am runners. Some drivers are starting to find some speed out there. So even though McDonald had that huge swapper,
and Marcin Jedlinski's just left as well. In fact, a few of them have, so leaving it to the very last minute. Blau Motorsport also there. This is good news for Alessio De Leda, knowing that others are improving. There is a chance that he could still get himself.
He's got to keep it on the island. He's got to keep it on the island. Everyone's got to try and keep it on the island through this scary patch of tarmac. I think this is the problem zone that everyone's going to have to worry about. It's more just about the fact that you can't just keep your foot flat to the floor. And if you do have a swapper, you've got to be very quick on the hands. And a bit like, you know, Alex Rossi style that one time in IndyCar, where he had that huge, monstrous save. So this is Vincent Abril in 7th position as it stands. And he has done a personal best in the middle sector. Let's see if it will be a personal best lap time and he gets over the timing line. It was not, but it was close. It was 0.4 away from his best, so give it a lap or two and maybe those times will start to improve, because even Giacomo Alto's had to come out of pit lane and make sure that he's on the track in case the conditions are improving to the point where someone could usurp that half-second advantage that he currently has for provisional pole position. And Abril struggling to get it stopped for turn 3. They're snapping the rear end of that Ferrari. It was writhing around more than an Australian Olympic breakdancer.
Yeah, Fabio Babini also improving in that middle sector as well. We're seeing personal bests from Yannick Mettler as well in Sector 1, 24.496. But Babini has registered a 44.731. That is a personal best in that middle sector for him. And Dean McDonald, again, finding more time. It's actually popped up to 8th fastest now here. Marcos Sibert going green in Sector 1. So he now finds a personal best. So there's more in this. And Dean McDonald has just set the fastest speed trap pace here so far. So there is something in this, in the dying moments of qualifying. McDonald once again a personal best. It's not just a normal personal best, it's nearly 2.5 tenths quicker. He is looking rapidly fast, but he has got traffic.
Yeah, he's had to dive down the inside at turn 4 there at the Motor Park Mercedes. Now that speed trap's going to be well done though, because it's on the run up to turn 3, isn't it, where they're having to back off. So it's nowhere near as fast as what they would normally be. What that speed trap is now at the moment is a test of bravery rather than the performance and drag of your engine and car respectively. And so there are still some good sector times coming in for McDonald. 2 personal bests. Personal best coming in from Yannick Mettler as well. He's up to 9th fastest in the car barn by SBS Mercedes and hauling himself up the Pro-Am order as well. He's up to 4th in class now. And now Dean McDonald currently 8th fastest. Let's see where this puts him. Marcos Siber's on a good lap as well. A personal best in the first sector. And he's gone up to 2nd fastest. Despite not improving in the other 2 sectors, he is marginally closer to Giacomo Alto now. And Dean McDonald up to 4th for Greystone GT.
It was well worth going back out. Well done, Dean McDonald, putting the McLaren in the top 5. And that pushes Leonardo Polcini down to 5th. And still the fastest in the speed trap, Dean McDonald. So whereas the conditions are tricky, Dean McDonald finding opportunity, as is Marcos Sibert here in this very wet circuit. And Sibert's gone faster again, a 24.123 in the first sector. McDonald has found a 24.215. Not quite as fast as Sibert, but good nonetheless. And incidentally, Alto went purple in the 3rd sector on his last run.
He did. He didn't improve the overall lap time, but definitely speed to be found still out there in the dying stages of this Q2 session, where we currently have 5 different manufacturers represented in the top 5. Ferrari, Mercedes, Audi, McLaren and Lamborghini all there in the top 10. And let's see if Sibert can improve further. Well, no, he's not found speed in the middle sector. Haasar hasn't been able to find it in the first sector. Dean McDonald is still finding time out there, though. The Scotsman is flying out there at the moment. So where's he coming up to now? This is Gustav Bergström in the car collection Porsche, currently 21st for the car that was 2nd yesterday. And but this is Sibert really wrestling with the rear end of that Mercedes, trying to get it round that last corner. Abral's first man over the line, 4th fastest, as is Patamba as well, only 18th for him. That's very disappointing, I'm sure, for them, as McDonald didn't improve on that last lap, neither did Sibert. And well, I think that was just a very narrow window in the end there for the improvements.
Marzio Moretti also finding time as well. He went green in the first 2 sectors. He's now 11th fastest is Marzio. So
that's really important. That's hauled him up 20 positions from where he was when we got green again.
He might go higher, because we're waiting for him to come out to the final sector now. So let's see where Marzio Moretti goes as he crosses the line. Green in the first 2 sectors, 24.203 and a 44.468 for the Oregon team Lamborghini. Just waiting for our timing screen to register. Don't think it quite has. He goes 9th fastest. He breaks ahead of Yannick Mettler into the top 10.
Nice job there from the young Italian. And the 2nd of the Oregon cars, because I'll tell you what, we actually haven't seen Deleda improve. Where is he? Still like 27th, 28th? So he hasn't been able to improve there, unless he's got one more left in the tank, but I don't believe he does, as we've got most of the cars over the line now, and it does very much look like pole position is confirmed for Giacomo Alto and the Racing 1 Ferrari 296, and leading the Pro-Am battle as well, of course, with 5 cars between himself and his nearest class rival, Eddie Cheever.
Yeah, 5 years on after a tremendous victory in the opening race back in 2019 with Albert Costa, and then he went on to take the title later on that season. Giacomo Alto back on top. Let's take a look at a replay moment.
Oh, that's Haasar.
Wow, that's Haasar, and he's pivoted around Luckily enough, no barriers in sight, but keeping it on the road.
Well, frame that one, folks. That is a rare sight indeed to see Haase losing the rear end of the Audi in such a way.
Speaks volumes about the conditions, in my view.
I'm going to tell the grandkids about that. Here are the results then from Q2. It is Racing 1 on top on pole position for race 2 this afternoon. Marcos Seeber, second fastest for Team Motorpark, with Christopher Haase on the second row of the grid, with Vincent Abril. Dean McDonald, one of Greystone GT's best qualifying performances, in 5th, with Leonardo Polcini in 6th. Eddie Cheever and Dan Arrow continue the Pro-Am battle further down. Marzio Moretti, a late effort there to get inside the top 10, with Yannick Mettler completing the top 10. Alex Fontana and Thomas Eichen and Ollie Webb continue the Pro-Am battle. Anthony Barton, despite that crash and bringing out the red flags, 14th for Team Get Speed. Giorgio Cernigiotto and Jamie Stanley, a pair of AF Corsa cars there. Fabio Babini for Tsunami, it was 17th. And Lorenzo Fluxet, Mikhail Patamba, slightly disappointing qualifying for them, down in 18th and 19th. Giuseppe Cipriani, fastest of the AM runners, in 20th place. Yesterday's race winner, Alessio De Leda, only 21st. And the car that he beat to the line, Gustav Bergström, only 22nd. Then Florian Schultz and Michael Blanchimont, with Marcin Jedlicki, Marcelo Hahn, Bashar Mardini, Valentin Pierberg, Stuart Proctor, completing the Pro-Am battle. And then we have Adam Osaka, Zerg Gandor, yesterday's AM race winner, Gino Forgione, and Stanislav Jedlicki. We did not see the ISR Audi out there, so it looks like it might be a 34-car field for this afternoon's race, but obviously we hope to get the full entry in if they can repair that car, but they did not get out in qualifying. For Giacomo Alto, it was Pro-Am victory yesterday, rather under the radar win as well. We were focused so much on what was happening up the front, we completely missed that Alto was storming his way up the order, and he's absolutely blitzed the field in this one by half a second.
Yeah, Pro-Am on top once again here in the International GT Open. Alto obviously absolutely thrilled with that one, smile on his face, and for good reason. Marcos Seeber, though, is going to make his, or try and make his life a misery at the start of the race anyway. Obviously still chasing their first win of the championship, but we'll head down with Alfredo.
Giacomo Altoe, pole position ahead of race 2 after winning the race in Pro-Am yesterday. Very wet this morning.
Yeah, obviously I'm really happy for the pole position, great lap. The team did an amazing job, the car was on rails, so really good. I think it was a matter of doing the lap right at the beginning, because then the track condition got worse, so we got everything in the right window at the beginning, so yeah, really good start of the day.
Well done, we'll see what happens later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we will see what happens later when the 60-minute race gets underway at 1:15 this afternoon.